Hello and welcome to the FIA Connect Spotlight, brought to you by FIN, the Farnborough International News Network, and I'm Alan Peaford. In this session, we're addressing the business strategy challenges in the aerospace and defence world, where our enterprises are working out where best to make investments to drive innovation, to enable operational efficiency, to meet sustainability objectives, to create competitive advantage, and to build overall resilience across the value chain. As we turn to advanced technologies such as digital thread to unlock new value and integrate organization, we look at extended reality solutions to transform the workforce and increase product quality while demanding seamless and ultra-reliable network connectivity, such as private enterprise 5G, across our connected ecosystem. So how will all of that work out? Well, I hope our panel of experts from KPMG, one of the world's biggest professional services companies that prides itself on working shoulder to shoulder with clients to help them solve some of their most complex business problems, and PTC, the global computer software and services company that offers a portfolio of computer-aided design modeling, product lifecycle management and service lifecycle management solutions. We're hoping they'll bring us some clarity to this issue. Well, let me introduce you to our panel today. First, Jim Adams. He's the National Aerospace and Defence Industry Leader for KPMG in the US, an Army veteran who spent 10 years with Boeing before entering the consulting world. He specializes in strategy-based transformation, corporate strategy and development, as well as improving product and company competitiveness, including operations and margin improvement. Then we have General H. Brent Baker, who's PTC's Vice President for Worldwide Federal Aerospace and Defense and Energy. General Baker had a distinguished career with the US Air Force and was the Vice Commander Air Force Material Command, based at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio. The command employs some 80,000 people and manages $60 billion annually in research, development, test and evaluation, while providing the acquisition management and services and logistics support required to develop, procure and sustain Air Force weapon systems. Third, we have Ian Bolton. He's the Senior Director in PTC's Technology and Platforms Group. He served in the UK's Royal Air Force before working with BAE Systems as an instructor. Since joining PTC, Ian has become a digital transformation evangelist focused on improving operational efficiency and readiness within the A&D industry. And the final member of our Fab Four is Greg Corliss, a principal at KPMG's Digital Lighthouse Service Network, who leads the Internet of Things and private enterprise network service portfolios for the US market. Over Greg's 19 years with KPMG, he's helped clients to resolve complex business issues by creating unique technology-based solutions which deliver measurable financial and performance results. So there you have it. Gentlemen, welcome. And let me start with you, Jim, then. Our world has changed significantly over the last year, and many organizations are looking for opportunities to transform their operations to ensure sustainable growth and drive operational efficiency across the enterprise. So, thinking about the aerospace and defense industry, where should enterprises be focusing their energy and their investments to keep pace with growth demands and drive innovation into their operations?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. If you look back, I'll focus on commercial aircraft in general. If you think about production rates are down 40% from where they were 2 years ago. So if you look at the world then, there was no time to really investment. Production rates were at an all-time high. Suppliers and the supply base were having lead time issues, quality issues, delivery issues. The world now has changed dramatically. We're 40+% down in rates of producing aircraft, financially constrained suppliers, production rates down, as I mentioned. So the question is, where do you invest, right? I think now's the time to start investing to start positioning for the upturn when the market starts to come back. So where would you do this? You got to think about production rates relative to other industries. A&D is much lower than other industries such as auto. I think things like design, development are a big area, and the connection with the supply base.
But things are changing out there, and we're looking at different kinds of digitalization programs, aren't we, making an impact on them? How do you see that? How do you see them actually adjusting?
I think they're going to have to. I've seen suppliers a couple of years ago struggling to get by, struggling to know where they are in terms of producing parts, of what their availability is of machines internally. You know, there was just a lot going on, and that this was at those historic all-time high production rates. Suppliers had a hard time keeping up. Digital investment is only going to enable them to achieve that, to improve delivery, improve lead time, and improve quality, and improve the operations of knowing what they're producing, where they are, and what their issues are.
Well, General Baker, if I can turn to you, I've been reading a bit about this as we've been planning, and digital thread seems to have come up a lot as a concept. Can you give me a clear definition of what digital thread is, and how is that being embraced by the industry to drive innovation?
Thanks, Alan. That's really a great question. And I will tell you from a PTC perspective, we would definitely agree with what Jim said. Things have really changed. The digital thread and this digital transformation, I think it is being embraced, and it's going to have to be. But, you know, there's all kinds of definitions out there. But the one I like to use is a digital thread is a system that really creates a closed loop, which greatly benefits the digital and the physical world. And what it really does, it optimizes that, really kind of both of those worlds, if you will. And the thing it really does, it really helps you get control of your data. I think that's the real key. There's some fancy names for it: digital thread, digital twin, but the idea is really getting control of the data that you have. And it's really visible, I think, in 3 or 4 locations, like people, processes, definitely the products, and even places. And if you think about this, Alan, think about the 4 business levers that you have to really impact your business. It's in those same 4 process areas. And so that's why I think this digitization, it's just kind of a natural evolution, if you will, of what we saw in the industry. But in a post-COVID world, and I don't want to overdo that, but if you start thinking about a post-COVID world, it really has accelerated some of those trends in digital transformation that we were seeing, quite frankly, even before COVID.
Okay, so if we look at PTC, and I know I mentioned it in the introduction with your suite of solutions that you bring to market, how does that suite of solutions help enable the digital thread concept?
Well, Alan, you really hit the nail right on the head. It's really solutions. And so, I've been with, PTC about 5.5 years. I think we were a very product centric company, but now we've become a very solution centric company. And it's really around the digital thread that I was talking about. So today, just quickly, if you think about PTC, you're able to design in CAD, Creo. You're able to use really artificial intelligence in there, generative design, real-time simulation. Then you can product life cycle manage an item throughout its life cycle. And oh, by the way, now you use IoT as another form of really kind of PLM extended, and you can connect things. And then on the far end, you have augmented virtual extended reality, which really brings that human back in. But the bottom line is you start thinking about all these products now are really become a solution. And an example is condition-based maintenance. And Jim kind of mentioned, getting control of supply chain. Well, it's really getting control of, the big supply chain, which includes maintenance as well. So that digital thread now is really moving away from specific products into more end-to-end solutions.
Okay, and can I turn to you now and build out from General Baker's comments? I understand you heavily focused on extended reality solutions that encompasses augmented, virtual, and mixed reality solutions for industrial manufacturing clients. Can you give us some idea on how these technologies are being used to improve and enhance operations on the factory floor and in the field?
Yeah, so at PTC, we've seen a big uptake in our augmented extended reality solutions, both on the manufacturing side, on the personnel training and enablement side, and within the realm of service and sustainment as well. But if we think about the factory setting, so PTC has kind of produced some very focused solutions for what we call smart connected operations. And what that allows companies to do is essentially take the digital IP that may have been developed in an engineering solution and then extend that down onto the factory floor through the use of our solutions such as the connected work cell or our ThingWorks platform. But the interesting thing about it too is it's not just PTC solutions. So when you think about manufacturing, there are certain systems of record that have to interoperate with one another. So we provide a lot of the product definition and the engineering specifications and the how-tos, but then there's usually a production management or production execution system that's used on the shop floor, like an MES, for example. And then there's also material planning and resource planning, like ERP. And so what we see on the factory is these solutions kind of operating in unison together, and our IoT platform kind of serves as the glue that's orchestrating that exchange of information around the digital thread and making sure the right people have the right information at the right time, and also collecting data as manufacturing operations are being performed on who's actually doing that task, where are they in the procedure, if there were torque values or measurements that need to be taken, have they been taken? Is the CNC machine or the 3D printer providing all of the right machine data that says that that part build is within tolerance, so that we can capture a whole digital fingerprint of what's going on in a factory environment. And augmented reality is one of the tools that we use to guide the worker through the correct operations that they should be performing at that workstation.
Yeah, I'm quite fascinated by the idea of that, with augmented reality being used for capturing work instruction. But can you just tell me, how does the outcome compared to, say, just using simple 2D experience happen?
Well, it's a good question. So I think that, 2D, the use of 2D depends to a certain extent on the media which you present it, right? So there's 2D that could be used in a paper manual, and there's 2D that could be used on an interactive computer screen. What we've found, and what also other agencies that have studied this have found, such as the US Air Force and some of the academic institutions that they work with, is that cognitive retention is greatly improved through illustrative means. And so it can be a combination of both 2D and 3D that comprises a work instruction. Not everything has to be 3D, but where there's a complex manufacturing procedure where the routes or the mating surfaces of the parts that come together, and maybe there's a certain order in which some bolts need to be torqued to specific values, but in a certain sequence. Being able to overlay that data and illustrate it on the physical product really removes a lot of the opportunity for mistakes by an operator. And it also can be dual purpose as a training aid for preparing someone how to do that operation at that workstation as well.
Hey, Alan, I would just add to Ian's 100% spot on. But, one thing we hear across all industries is this aging, retiring workforce. And I used to think that was very specific to the Air Force, but it's really specific to federal aerospace defense industry, and I'm sure other industries as well. But this new technology is very exciting and very attractive for young folks that come in that may think that this space is not that cool, but you bring in some of this amazing technology and it really gets them interested. So I wouldn't say you buy solutions for a cool factor, but there is a little bit of a cool factor when you're using, augmented, extended, and mixed reality.
Yeah, I agree with Brent, and not to monopolize the conversation here, but I do feel that with the younger generation of workers that are coming into the workforce now, if you think about the gaming technologies that they've used as younger people, a lot of those gaming technologies leverage headsets and other types of immersion into the digital experience. So in many cases, that's the way that they are used to interacting with computer systems. So we have to modernize the infrastructure to support these workers as they enter the workforce. If we still present them with 2D drawings and blueprints, that they're going to have a harder time understanding that than if we present them with immersive digital information.
Brilliant. Okay, Greg, can I come to you now? Because I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how the industrial manufacturers are going to handle the increased volume of data. As you know, we know from trying to set up these kind of things that connectivity requirements are essential. And to support the innovative solutions that are going to cover things like the digital thread, that's got to be some change.
Yeah, absolutely, Alan. So, here in General Baker, Jim and Ian talk already. You think about these solutions, and I think General Baker and Ian made a great point. A lot of your younger folks that are coming into the industrial manufacturing space, they're kind of leery of it because it's not the cool place to be. It's not a Google or a Facebook or someplace else like that. But the reality is, with a lot of these manufacturers, especially in aerospace and defense, they are evolving to very much a technology organization. So they are deploying these very cool, leading edge, emerging technologies to obviously drive operational efficiency across the organization. So as somebody going into that organization, I'm going to have a chance to work with a lot of new cool tech that wasn't available to, say, my dad in a steel mill, but it's now available in those markets. And the way we look at kind of the digital thread, you can call it multiple things. We also call it kind of the whole connected ecosystem, right? So in the manufacturing space, you've got your inbound suppliers, you have the factory floor, you have your outbound suppliers, you have your consumers, and they're all generating massive amounts of data. So we got to look at how do we integrate all of those different components together from all these disparate data sources and bring that into an aggregated platform. So I have a full view of my entire life cycle or my value chain. It's not an easy task to actually address, and actually generates a massive amount of volume from a data perspective. So organizations really need to be able to set up a foundational platform. So Ian talked about the ThingWorx platform provided by PTC. But you also need a cloud layer. You may have your historical databases, your time series databases that are all gathering information, but again, they're siloed environments right now. But we need to bring those into that consolidated view, so I can drive a lot more insights across my organization and have the necessary view of full set of operations across that connected ecosystem or the digital thread. And that's not going to happen just overnight. It's not a bunch of plugging, different systems into different systems. There's a lot of plumbing that actually has to occur. And one of the coolest things that we're seeing, or the most emerging tech areas that we're seeing kind of evolve, is really around private networks. So private enterprise networks. Most manufacturing organizations today operate on wired networks as well as Wi-Fi. But with the emergence of 5G, we're going to start seeing rapid adoption by industrial manufacturing and other industrial manufactured supported partners like your supply chain. They're going to start adopting 5G for the primary communications back going forward. What 5G actually provides you is an ultra reliable communication within your factory floor, high velocity with very low latency communication. So those critical operational systems that you can't, if there's a potential failure, I need to know immediately. I need to be able to take immediate action as an operator. With 5G, you're actually going to have that almost instantaneous or real-time communications back to the operator, so I can make immediate decisions. And those types of technology with 5G, it's going to drive a lot of the the AR, VR, mixed reality solutions you're going to be deploying, because they require high bandwidth throughput. You're starting to see computer vision being used for quality control. Again, very high bandwidth throughput that's going to be required. And I can do that with wired today, but I might have to deploy 2 or 3 cameras. If I go the 5G route, I might be able to deploy 5 or 6 cameras, all consuming bandwidth without any limitations. So it's those types of technologies that are really going to be consuming a lot more data at a much higher velocity, that you're going to have things like private 5G networks across the enterprise to improve that communications. And I think it's just another component of that entire digital thread that manufacturers need to think about, and how does it potentially change their organizations and accelerate innovation for them.
So, Greg, can I just ask you about the capability of that? Because at the moment, there seems to be quite a bit of concern in the world about the increase of people wanting to work remotely, or being expected to work remotely. I mean, a lot of us had the experience over the past 18 months. But do you think those systems and the 5G and everything will allow us to do things like CAD-based product design team, to be able to work from home?
Yes, I know.
Yeah, no, I absolutely do. I think it will change slightly, right? If you're working in a remote location on a CAD design, a lot of that compute power is actually going to occur at the desktop, and then it's going to be communicating across, my personal broadband. That's going to get it back into those systems. I think the architecture is very much going to differ between what's within the factory floor walls and what may go to that remote worker. But again, you got to have that high bandwidth and high throughput, and that can be through fiber to the home and then 5G on the factory floor. And a lot of this is driven heavily by the cloud solutions, right? So everything's going up into a cloud. It could be a private cloud, could be a hosted cloud, or it could be a hybrid as well. So again, getting that data back into that cloud environment is going to be key, regardless of where that the worker is. And then you'll have the edge computing capabilities, but that's again going to be more in the factory floor scenario where I need that instantaneous communications. So I don't know, General Baker, do you have additional thoughts on the remote worker, Jim?
This General B, I'll just go real quick. I just say, Greg, I second your comments. I mean, that's exactly what we're seeing. I think a lot of people now, especially knowledge workers, folks that are behind a computer, a lot of those folks are going to be working from a remote location. So you're going to have really high speed. The other thing as well, I used to rarely, I would be asked about the cloud. Like I would bring the cloud up in meetings, but they would just say, yeah, we're kind of looking at it, kind of don't call us, we'll call you. But that's greatly changed now. It's one of the first questions I get is, what are you doing about cloud solutions? What do you know about, a certain cloud? What about Cloud One that the Air Force is using? So it's really becoming very prevalent. In matter of fact, like even PTC, our largest two acquisitions recently, they're in the area of software as a service, pure SaaS for CAD and PLM. And so, we're one of many companies, but, the thought process is that we believe this is obviously going to, 5G, cloud-based, high speed, very thin client.
So, Greg, can I ask you about that capability, please? Because at the moment, there seems to be quite a bit of concern in the world about the increase of people wanting to work remotely or being expected to work remotely. I mean, a lot of our experience over the last 18 months have shown us some of the challenges on that. So do you think those systems with 5G and everything is going to allow us to do things like CAD-based product design? Can we do that work from home?
I think that's a great question. I think it's really going to vary, client to client, to be honest, or company to company. I think as we are starting to come out of COVID, I think organizations are trying to determine what their work environment is going forward. Many industries are saying, hey, we're going to hybrid work model. You're in the office 2 days a week and you're remote the rest of the time. Some are going entirely remote. And to be honest, some are actually saying, we want you back in the office 100%. So we've seen a lot of organizations kind of rejigger or adjust the layout of their individual properties just to be able to get you that social distancing where it's possible. But in some cases, it just won't be, especially in the factory floor. Depending on, if you're working in a large aircraft, you're not going to be able to social distance in every case. So I think organizations have to take certain precautions as much as possible. But I don't think there's going to be a scenario where long-term social distance is going to be absolutely required. And I think for organizations, it's going to be a challenge for them to keep some of those protocols in place going forward.
With that, we've talked to many clients about examining their office footprint and as well as their computing capabilities, and are they set up to go to a hybrid model? And to your point, it's probably the classic third, right? A third are going back to the workforce, a third are doing a hybrid model, and a third are really re-examining, hey, can we do this 100% remotely? Go to alternative office situations when we do have them, hoteling, et cetera. The notion of a four-walled office that's all mine is going away. And I think we're going to increasingly see a more virtual workforce.
So, okay, we think we can get remote working okay. I'm interested in this as far as the whole panel goes here. Do you think we're prepared for a workplace with social distancing, particularly in the manufacturing plants and factories, as well as the remote working in other areas? Are these new technologies and systems we've talked about here pushing us down that road? Are they adaptable enough to cope with the new normal, no matter what it looks like?
I would think short answer is yes, I think it will happen. I think we're starting to see things return. Again, I won't say the word normal because I don't think we're there yet, but things are improving, getting better. Uh, I think, again, this has been, obviously, it's been a really remarkable year and a half, but this is also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to do things differently than you did before, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that, sometimes like in a factory, out on a flight line, or you're rebuilding an aircraft. I mean, you're just so busy day in, day out. You never have time to lift your head up from the daily grind and be able to look at your processes. And I think this is a wonderful time. And if you notice, kind of the theme of this panel is that digital transformation is possible. Those capabilities are out there now. And so I'm hoping as we start rebuilding and remaking and renewing, that we don't just automatically jump back into things the way they were. I think it's fairly smart to look at new, improved ways of being able to do processes. And in my mind, digital transformation is one way that people should really be examining.
General Baker too. I think there's very few good things that came out of COVID, but I guess one positive things is it has been a catalyst for change for a lot of enterprises. They've really been forced to adapt, right? And that was by deploying technology so workers could work from home. But now I think as, again, we're emerging out of COVID, now they're looking at what's their long-term plan, what's the digital transformation that they actually need to go through so that they're sustainable in the future. So if there is future disruptions, they can't shut down their factories for weeks, months on end, right? It's just not going to be possible. So now there's the opportunity to implement these types of technologies or emerging technologies to actually address and mitigate potential issues in the future. And I think for enterprises, it can be scary, right? Looking at all these different technologies, we're throwing out a lot of different technical terms. Can be scary to look at those and try and figure out, where do I start, right? And I think that's the biggest challenge for a lot of enterprises is they don't know where to, where should they be making their investments? Who should they be bringing in to actually help them through that process? But the important thing is they need to realize they have to go through this digital transformation and start building a plan. And how do I move forward? And players like KPMG and PTC, we're there to be partners with, aerospace and defense clients, as well as other clients, to guide them through those challenging processes. And you just have to be prepared to get started and move forward and, take the leap, basically.
Well, gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for that intriguing look into our future, to our industry and the way we get there. So thank you for joining us on this platform today. I'd like to thank the panel, Jim Adams, General Brent Baker, Ian Bolton and Greg Corliss for their insights. Now don't forget, all sessions from FIA Connect will be published on the wearefin.com platform, along with our regular menu of videos, news and insights. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.